Okay, you can see here we've got the graph and the spreadsheet that we made in the last session. And the graph's starting to show the information much more clearly than all the writing is doing in the table on the left-hand side. If I click on this population graph here, you can see it highlights and shows that we're pulling the data from column A and B, but it's much easier to see that Iran and Egypt have got the biggest populations. And in the same way, if we click on the area one, it's pulling data from columns A and C. And again, you can see that Saudi Arabia is by far and away the largest by area. Okay, so what we want to do now is try and make these look a little bit more interesting. So we're going to click on here, and the first thing we're going to do is change these bars. Now, if I click on the bar once, all the bars will highlight. But if I double click on them, only one highlights. And this allows us to change each one individually. I can then click on the fill and line option. And if I want, I can do something very basic, like go to solid fill, choose different colors, make them look a bit more interesting. And that will work for some of our graphs, but in this case, what I want to do is make it a little bit more interesting and try and match the countries where the data is coming from. So in this case, we're looking at Iran. I'm not starting with Luxembourg because it's got a very small line and there isn't much space to enter data there. So what we're going to do, instead of solid fill, we're going to go to picture and texture fill. We're going to go to picture source and click insert. I'm going to go for online pictures. We're typing in Iran flag, but you could look for something else from Iran if you want. Press enter. And this has got Creative Commons enabled. Now if we switch that off, the selection gets a lot bigger, but we don't necessarily have the right to use these images. So we're going to leave it switched on, and then we know that we can use any of the images that are here. This is a fairly decent flag, so we're going to press insert. And you can see it puts the Iranian flag in. The only problem is it puts it very stretched. So you can do it that way, or you can click here where it says stack, and it'll stack lots of small Iranian flags together, which I quite like. I want to do Iraq next. If I click on Iraq once, it selects Iraq. If, however, I go off and click on it once, it will select all of them. And the problem then is if I now go onto my picture one, you'll see it applies the same picture to all of them. So we don't want that. So we're going to click off, double click until only one is selected. And then we're going to do the same thing now. So we're going to go back to insert, back to online pictures. We're going to look for Iraq flag. Creative Commons is still enabled. Select the one we want, press insert, and again it's up to you, but I'm going to choose stack. Same for Saudi Arabia. Repeat the same process, making sure that we've only got Saudi selected. So write in a Saudi flag. Again, Creative Commons is enabled. Choose the Saudi flag, press insert, and again in my case I'm going to choose stack. Now you can see Lebanon, Oman, Jordan, Egypt, Yemen and the United Arab Emirates all still have the Iranian flag, and I'll need to go and correct those later, but these ones are starting to look a little bit more interesting. Now while we've got the format shape option here, we can also change some other things. If we click on the countries here and choose text options, we can choose different colours for our text. If we go to population, we can do the same thing, so we can choose a different colour for the writing at the top, choose red or something. You can also choose things like gradient fill on here, and you can move the sliders around. Select different colours, so it's going from a blue to a green. Change the blue to being something like a red. You've got red to green. That might not be a very attractive colour, but you can see it's starting to become a more interesting graph here. So that's the next task. Work through, change our bars, change our title, change our axis labels, make it look a lot more personalised and a bit more interesting.